Welcome back to another edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. I'm James Lynch. You know who's here. He's here all the time. It's Troy Noak back here on the program. We got a lot to get into, man. There's so much to go over. We got obviously the games from last night. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the New York Islanders winning the draft lottery. I know you live in New York, so obviously there's some stuff we can talk about there. And then, this new Utah name, they officially are going to be called the Mammoth. We can get a reaction to everything there. But before we get into everything, Troy, how you doing, man? How are you enjoying the playoffs so far?
These playoffs are absolutely fantastic. Yesterday, I was at the Yankee game. I was lucky enough to catch the end of the Oilers game when I got back. And that highlight of Sebastian Aho getting his mouth guard snatched by Tom Wilson almost made me fall on the floor. That was so funny.
Let's get to the action from last night and even talk a little bit about the day before, because obviously round two already underway. And let's start first with the game you just referenced there, the Golden Knights and the Oilers. Golden Knights up 2-0 early in the game. Oilers come back and get this one done. I was surprised that Vegas sort of collapsed in periods 2, periods 3. Edmonton, down early, didn't give up, and they got it done. And again, they're doing it with Calvin Pickard, which I always think is really amazing here. What did you think of the game? Because I was pretty surprised Vegas losing at home. That's usually one of the loudest buildings for them.
Yeah, that's shocking to me. And I think time and time again, we always find ourselves in a situation where as much as we prepare ourselves for it, the regular season to playoff projections just never match up, no matter how hard we try to take things into consideration. And we see players specifically like Leon Draisaitl and in the last round, Mikko Rantanen, these guys that are the size of moose that can slow the play down and kind of balance out the heavy physical play of the playoff style. These are the guys that keep things consistent when stuff gets crazy. And that's the type of player that I felt like Colorado missed in that series, which ultimately lost them the series.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible to see the Oilers get that first win. They've been flying high, obviously, since they won that LA series. Obviously, I think the last time you and I talked, it looked like LA was going to win that thing. And then one bad call by Jim Hillier has really sort of turned things around, the series going the complete opposite direction. The Kings are out. We might as well just quickly talk about that, too, because that sort of ties into the Oilers series. The Kings letting go of Rob Blake. You got to wonder, new GM comes in. Jim Hillier's probably out of a job here pretty soon. But what did you make of the Kings collapse? Because that was really surprising to me. It looked like they had it, especially early on in the series.
Yeah, that was just genuinely unacceptable. And I've picked the Kings every single time they've played the Oilers in the last 3 or 4 years when they've matched up in the first round of the playoffs, and they always make me look like a complete fool. And I pride myself in my predictions. Yeah, I know I can't get everything right, but seriously, like every time you look at this team, you say the same thing. Oh my God, they're so deep down the middle. They have semi-consistent goaltending. They have pretty talented defenders. Adrian Kempe can fire the puck. Kopitar, one of the most talented two-way forwards the league's ever seen in the last 10, 15 years. And it's just like unbelievable, some of his mistakes that they were making. It's like in the playoffs, it's all about having a buttoned up tight style where you're not leaking. And it's just like the way they play just doesn't translate to playoff success. Yeah, they won 2 shootouts, not literal shootouts, but 2 like absolutely insane east to west games. And you just can't continue to play a series like that in the playoffs if you have any aspirations of making a run.
Let's continue on with the second round. The other game that happened last night, you referenced it there, the Hurricanes and the Capitals. The Hurricanes taking advantage of a Caps sort of bad play here, and Hurricanes end up winning it in OT. This is going to be a really tight series, as sort of the score reflected last night. Just your thoughts so far in Carolina and Washington.
I didn't see this game because I was at the Yankees game yesterday, but I will preface this. I truly believe that Carolina is going to win in 5. I just think the way that they match up stylistically, the score lines are always going to look like this. But just in general, like Carolina, they're statistical darlings. They allow the least shot attempts in the entire NHL. They take the most shot attempts in the entire NHL. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean every shot attempt's high danger because their D-men are some of the basically highest shooting defensive core in the NHL. So listen, I don't think there's going to be many blowouts in this series. It's just the nature of how the Hurricanes play. But when I look at this, I just genuinely feel like Washington's going to be totally outmatched at 5-on-5 the whole time because the way that these Hurricanes players skate in waves with tons of speed, it's just, I don't think Washington's going to have what it takes once the series starts to get underway.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to keep in mind. Carolina did look very fast. Actually, speaking of slow, I thought the Knights looked really slow yesterday too. That was something that I was a bit surprised with. You think of all the talent on that team. Edmonton was sort of skating circles around them, so I was pretty surprised by that. Okay, the other series we got to talk about the Panthers and the Leafs. Obviously, the big talk there is Anthony Stollart's getting hit by Sam Bennett. It still don't, as far as I know, I don't know if Stollart's is going to be playing tonight. I will quickly look that up as we're talking here. But just your thoughts on this series. Leafs getting the first one. I think that was a bit surprising.
Yeah, my general opinion on this series is that this Florida Panthers third line is going to have a massive mismatch every game, no matter if they're home or away. Luosterainen, Lundell, Brad Marchand. Put that up against any NHL's third line. They're outmatching them 10 times out of 10. I don't know why I was saying 7 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10. And honestly, yeah, Florida lost the first game of the series, and they weren't at home. But I will say this. Paul Maurice backs his team with the style that they play. And you know what? Who knows if Anthony Stolarz has a concussion? You know how these hockey teams are and these players are. He definitely has a concussion, but they're not admitting it. And they're going to bring him right back because they don't want to put Wall in this situation because the Panthers started shelling him as soon as he came in the net. So, yeah, I mean, they lost the first game, but I think the Panthers are probably going to win in 6. The Leafs, yeah, they're a little stingy 5-on-5. They're better than they've been in the last few years. But like I said, the bottom 6 versus the bottom 6 forward groups on each of these teams, there's a clear difference for me.
I'm going to go even further. I'm going to say Panthers in 5. Joseph Wall is starting tonight. Matt Murray is backing him up. I think Stollartz might be done. I mean, that looked really bad. And for people who haven't seen it, you see him throwing up on the bench. Like that is a clear sign of a concussion. Yep. No doctor here, but I think that's pretty safe to say. And you're exactly right. Like if you look at the depth, that really what it boils down to. Florida just has so many options, so many weapons they can use. And I just don't think the Leafs will be able to match that. You've also got Austin Matthews, not 100%. Like there's a lot of sort of issues with the Leafs right now that I just don't think they're going to be able to overcome. Listen, I'd love the Leafs to win. I used to live in Toronto. Went to a bunch of Leaf games. I'm always going to be supporting the Leafs, but I think in this case, the Panthers, I think will have their number. I'll go 5, but we'll see. We'll see who's right the next time we talk. And then, of course, the last series we got to talk about, game 1 taking place tonight. By the way, Panthers and Leafs also taking place tonight. I kind of don't like this. I kind of wish that they would do like it in sequence in some way because it just seemed, I don't know. You tell me about this. Is it weird that Panthers and Leafs are playing their second game and Winnipeg and Stars are playing their first? I almost think they should have delayed it a day or something. What do you think about that?
You know how the NHL is really bad.
I know.
Schedule makers. And, you know, it's going to be hard to find someone that can make a good schedule. But from what information I have, this guy who's been making the schedule for the NHL has had this job for a very, very long time, like multiple decades. So, you know, maybe he'll retire soon.
Hopefully. And then they got to change the playoff format. They got to do the play-in. I said that too, that they need to change things up. Because let's be honest here, like we just saw Dallas and Colorado play each other. We saw Tampa Bay and Florida play each other. Those realistically should have been conference finals. They shouldn't have been first round matchups, but I guess too that it makes things more interesting that way as well. But I like the play-in idea or the changing up the seeding format as far as how they do the playoffs, kind of like the NBA does.
Yeah, I think that would be really good, especially because I know the Eastern Conference, the lower end of it, it's really not that high-end skill. But I think those play-in matchups would be very entertaining.
Let's talk about the Stars and the Jets. Jets get it done. What a I'm sure you watched that game, but that was just not. I thought I was texting all my friends. I was watching the game early. I'm like, Blues have got this. It's over. And it wasn't over. The Jets come back. What was it? 2 seconds left. They scored to tie it up, and then they win in overtime. And you could just tell in overtime, Troy, that the Jets were going to win that game. The Blues looked like they were, I don't know what was going on there, but the Jets were certainly controlling it. Blues were getting some shots, but I feel like the Jets were getting the more quality shots. And then, of course, they score. Connor Hellebuck gets his revenge on Jordan Binnington from the Four Nations and ends up going to the second round. But with all that said, you got the Stars who shocked the Avs. I like the Stars here. You know me, I've been very high on Dallas. I think they are my cup pick. I think they will get it done. And, one of the things we talked to Travis Tyler about, who covers the Stars last week, is just the overall depth that they have. Talked about Florida's depth. I'd say the Stars have it even more. Who are you liking in this series? And what do you think of game 1 here tonight in Winnipeg?
Before I answer the question, what is the status of Mark Scheifele for tonight's game?
I don't, you know what? Good question. Let me quickly look at that. I don't think he's in. Let me just see here if I can even spell Scheifele right.
I can't spell that.
Yeah.
I couldn't take my life to spell Mark Scheifele.
Let's see what we got here. Okay. I'm just looking at some tweets here. Mark Scheifele. Oh, it just says he's out for game 7. Why? I don't know. Someone just posted this 7 hours ago. So that's an old story. So yeah, we don't know yet. If I had to guess though, I don't think he's in. Just because it did seem pretty serious. But we'll keep tabs on that for sure. As far as like a lineup thing, I need to find like a Jets beat reporter or something that would probably have that information. But okay, let's say Scheifele's out. How are you looking at tonight's game?
So it doesn't change who wins the series for me, but it changes how many games it would go.
Okay.
I think Vladislav Nemesnikov's a good center, but he's obviously playing very high up in the lineup. And we saw Lowry getting deployed with Kyle Connor late in the game the other day when they started sparking the comeback. I just feel, like you said, I think the depth with Dallas is huge, and we haven't even seen Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen yet. And they could be blocked into a real
I lost your audio. I don't know. It might be me. Let me just see here. One sec. Yeah, I think it's you. Your audio is gone for some reason because I just checked my testing thing. 1 second. It may be a situation where just check your if you go to your settings and then check your audio, you should get levels. If you're getting levels, then it might be something on my end. I had this happen actually last week with Travis too. So maybe it's a StreamYard thing. If I still can't hear you. You know what I do is maybe hop out, hop back in, and that might do the trick. That's like the equivalent of, when you were younger and you were playing Nintendo and you had to blow the game. It's sort of the same thing here, I think. So yeah, we'll get Troy back here in 1 second. But I was trying to play some suspense up here. It looks like Mark Scheifele is going to play here tonight. Did find a Winnipeg Jets beat writer, which by the way, this Connor Harabchak kind of looks like Connor Hellebuck. I got confused for a second. I was like, what's he doing here? Doing that. So yeah, it says he's returning tonight. So we'll see what Troy has to say about that in terms of Mark Scheifele. But yeah, we're going to see here what I like the Stars tonight. Although they are on the road, but the Jets just had a pretty emotional last game here. Let's see if we got Troy back. Do we got you?
Does it work?
It does work. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay, yeah, because I saw the levels on my thing, so it must be
weird. Okay, yeah, it's a stream. Yeah, I don't know. Something's up with StreamYard or something. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, Mark Scheifele is going to play tonight. I've seen 2 reports now.
Okay.
So
I think the game's going to be a lot lower scoring now because I feel like it's going to be harder for Dallas to mount consistent momentum throughout the game now that they have Scheifele, who's prototypically one of those players that's able to slow the game down. That's why him and Kyle Connor are such good line mates, because Kyle Connor flies down the wing, has a wicked release, and then you have Scheifele that can consistently win faceoffs and slow it down for him to find openings and soft spots. But I think Dallas are going to win here 3-1.
Yeah, I'm liking the Stars here tonight. Actually, do we have? I'll go look up some odds here real quick, just for you bettors out there. See if we do have anything odds-wise for that. And of course, the book I'm loading right now is going very slow. Let's see here. Bodog for you guys in the States would be Bovidia, I think is the name of the book. It's similar though. But what do we got odds-wise here tonight? So the Panthers -145, understandable. I mean, Leafs are plus money at home. That's never a terrible bet. But Dallas just -115. So not bad. Almost a pick 'em there between these two. So I'll lay the -115 on Dallas. You said you like the under or the over, you said?
What is it lined at? 6? Definitely the under.
Yeah, the under at -125, I think is.
I'd even pay the juice to get it at 6.5. It's probably about like -160. I think that's
and you got to think two really good goaltenders, right? So that's what.
Although -160, its implied win probability is 61.54%, and I feel like under less than 7 goals in that game is probably about 65% likely. So I feel like you have an edge if you take it at those odds.
Yep, I would agree. So yeah, we talked about all the series that are going on right now. Let's get to the Islanders. Actually, let's get the bracket up, or to the showing the NHL draft lottery results, and we can talk a little bit about this. I'm not going to pretend I'm a prospects guy per se, but some interesting things going on. So if you haven't seen it, the draft lottery results are as follow. We have the New York Islanders getting the first pick. So what I'm trying to remember where they were projected to go. It was like top 10. So for them to get number 1, I think that was pretty much
up 10. I think they were 11th. They moved
11th. Okay, yeah. So that's awesome. So yeah, Islanders get first pick. I believe the last time they picked first overall was it 99 when they took Rick DiPietro. I think it was. Yeah, it's been quite some time, and we know how that all worked out for them. Trading Roberto Luongo, and it not really panning out too much with obviously DiPietro getting that crazy contract and then getting injured. You got the Sharks at number 2, Blackhawks at number 3. I'm kind of torn on this. I actually don't know if we've talked about this before, but I have a big issue with teams getting like high picks back to back. Like I feel like San Jose and Chicago picked so high. Like I feel like at some point it's like you got to move down a little bit. Like, I don't know, like, especially team more so with the first overall pick. Like, that's one that always bothered me with Edmonton. That's part of the reason I don't like the Oilers, is because they had, I don't know how many first overall picks, and they've got other teams that have never had a first overall pick. But what do you think of the order here? With again, this is kind of what we expected, in Vancouver, of course, staying at Vancouver's 15. So actually, what? Yeah, they have 4. I think that's wrong. Let me just see if they have the actual board here. Because Canucks are 15th. I was going to say, because on there they had 14. What are your thoughts on the Islanders getting the pick? You're from Long Island.
These are my thoughts. Obviously, loads of my close friends are diehard Islanders fans. My phone was erupting. It was endless. And shout out to my guy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. We're going to throw the tinfoil hat on right here in honor of Clint. Our governor, Kathy Hochul, wrote a letter to Gary Bettman publicly, an open letter, that openly expressed her disgust in the cancellation of the 2026
I've heard
All-Star
this.
game.
That's right. Yeah, they got screwed out of the All-Star game. Yeah.
And they invested over $100 million in making a train station that would be in the vicinity, very close in the vicinity of UBS Arena. And it would be the first one that was made on Long Island in over 50 years. And she's basically was like, I'm so disappointed in you. We were expecting so much economic growth in this time for this event. We're disgusted that you're moving on to the World Cup of Hockey. Like, we want to have an event of equal or greater economic value to our state, like in the near future. And then the New York Islanders magically win the draft lottery and move up 10 spots. I don't know.
No,
I don't know. I'm not going to die.
I'll tell you this.
I've
got a little bit of insight here. Okay, so way back in the day, I used to work at TSN, and obviously TSN in Canada, before Sportsnet got the rights, was the rights holder for the NHL, and it was like a big thing to be working at TSN at the time I was working at. So I know they did this one live, right? I think. I believe this. I didn't see the lottery, but I believe it was live this time. So I remember being in the back because I worked on the digital team. And they had we got to see like the raw feed for like anything that was going on for production. Like we had access to that because, for us, like if we could grab anything like quicker than anyone else and put it online, that was sort of the thing. Anyways, I think it was the year McDavid was drafted. What year was he drafted? Let me just double check this just to get. Actually, no, I think McDavid was too late. I'm just going to double check the year here, see if I'm right. When was this? 2015? No, yeah, that would have been too late. So it would have been before that. I forget. Actually, no, it was the Nail Yakupov draft. Okay, that I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Anyways, long story short was we saw the graphic of the results before they were like open to the public, and like it popped up on the screen by accident, and nothing was live. This was just like them testing stuff, but they had the results already up of who won the lottery. And then we get a phone call like literally 30 seconds later being like, oh, don't repeat anything that you've seen here or whatever, right? Because it was like a spoiler result. So back then I knew that like they sort of determined things ahead of time. So this whole idea about, your conspiracy theory with the Islanders, wouldn't put it past it. I think there is some weird stuff going on there. Now, again, that could have just been them drafting already and then having the results ahead of time just so they were like prepared. But I also thought like, how did they know the order already? Right. So, I thought that was interesting. So you never know.
Like I said, it all seems just like a perfect coincidence for it not to make sense. But hey, the Islanders, those fans have been tortured for a long time. They deserve it. I know it's not the deepest draft. Hopefully they don't mess it up with this draft pick. But I'm happy for them. They've really, with under Lou Lamoriello, they've just been in a bad direction. I'm not even a bad direction. Aimlessly, I think is the proper term of where this team was going. And now they acquired Colorado's best prospect in Callum Ritchie. Cole Iserman's been tearing it up in college, and he's also a year younger than basically everyone in his grade. And whoever they draft in this pick, probably Schaefer, to bolster their defense moving forward. They might have some solid pieces to build around because most of the guys on this team are 29, 30 years old. They're probably going to trade Matthew Barzal this summer now.
Yeah, there's going to be some movement, and we know that they're doing a rebuild. I mean, there's a couple things on the Islanders, and we'll sort of move on here. First off, here's sort of the listed of the prospect rankings right now. You can have a look at this. Now, the name I heard is James Hagens. Hagens. I don't know how you say it because he's from New York. There was some thought that maybe the Islanders trade down, get this guy, see if they can get something else, or maybe they do draft Schaefer and then trade him to someone else. Is there any talk of that on your end? Because that was something I read yesterday.
Yeah, James Hagens is actually from the town that's next to mine.
Oh, okay, interesting. But he's an Islanders fan, is my understanding.
Yes, but this is what I hear. His draft stock over the last few months has dropped. Like he was originally slated to be the number one, and obviously he's dropped to 3. And even though Matthew Schaefer got injured, he clearly has the most upside. I know the position's a premium as well because he's a defenseman, but I don't think they're going to pick James Hagens. Not saying he's not going to be a certified great NHLer moving forward, but I just don't see them honestly taking him with the first overall pick. I feel like it's got to be Schaefer because, in my honest opinion, Noah Dobson's very soft in front of the net in the corners. He's just a glorified power play specialist. He kind of just reminds me of like Dougie Hamilton in the sense that he's kind of big for nothing and he doesn't use his body. Like he's 6'4", 6'5", and he doesn't throw it around at all. Yeah, he can take shots from the point and he's really talented in that deployment and role. But if 5-on-5, he's a liability. He's a third pair D-man at best, Noah Dobson.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you mentioned, the Islanders possibly going through a rebuild. Of course, when they made the pick, the Islanders don't have a general manager. Lou Lamoriello stepping down. He is going to be, I believe, still part of the team. The latest rumor I've heard, I don't know if you've been hearing anything, Ken Holland is being tied to the Islanders, apparently. Have you heard this?
Oh, yeah. If that happens, that's like from going from bad to worse, I believe.
Yeah,
honestly.
I agree.
Oh, my God. If that happens to my Islanders friends, listen, I don't root for the Islanders. I like trolling my friends a little bit, but if they get him, oh my goodness, you know he's going to mess something up catastrophically if he goes over there.
Well, I think they just need someone new to do a rebuild. Like Holland's not really the rebuild guy, right? Like you need someone that's going to go on. Like, you know, who there's been some talks about is, and I didn't even know he was available, but I read this yesterday. Jeff Gordon from Montreal, he's the president, but there's talks of him. And of course, he used to work with the Rangers. I do wonder if maybe they could look at that because that's what he wanted to do in New York. And the owner basically said no, and then they parted ways, if you remember, right? Remember there was that whole letter, and then shortly after that, I think Gordon left to go to Montreal. So I don't know. I'll be something to keep an eye on. There's so many things going on. Actually, that's something I should just mention as well too, before we sort of move on here. Although I guess, is there anything else you wanted to mention about the draft order? I don't know if there's anything that really stands
Utah
out.
jumped up a bunch of spots, and I think
They did.
That's by design, honestly, because you know what? They do have a lot of picks, and they're not going to use all these guys. They have a ton of prospects, but under new ownership, new eyes, these people in the front office don't have attachments to so many of these players under that regime. Yeah, a lot of the guys are the same in the front office, but not all of them. And they're looking at it through a completely different lens. And especially with an ambitious owner that's willing to spend, they're not going to be handcuffed and moving forward. Now they kind of know what they're dealing with. They moved. They're seeing how the culture is slowly changing. They didn't come super close to making the playoffs, but like they were playing relatively meaningful hockey down that late stretch of the season before they collapsed.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind they had a lot of injuries earlier in the year. If they don't have those injuries, they probably do make the playoffs. I mean, that's someone who saw the Utah team basically own the Canucks this year. I can tell you they're a pretty good team. They're very fast. And also, while we're on the topic of Utah, the Mammoth. What do you think of the name?
I think the name's amazing. And the logo, I actually think
I like the logo too.
It's sneakily pretty good with like the underlying Utah / like it almost looks, the shading looks like it's a mountain to me in the back as well behind the tusks. And I think there's some really good potential with that colorway as well. Like they could have an ice blue third jersey that would be unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I like it. This is a jersey. I mean, I don't think I'll ever wear one of the Utah jerseys. I don't really have any connection to them, but I like that, especially like that black jersey with the the teal blue, really, really sharp colors. And again, one of the things you see every now and then is similar colors, right? Like you've got like Carolina and New Jersey are kind of similar, or even like Montreal. Like sometimes you get colors that kind of blend together a little bit. There isn't really a team like other than maybe San Jose, but not really because San Jose is more more of the, I don't know, the different colors and different logo and stuff, but really good job, Utah. So for people who don't know, Yeti, that was the name that everyone wanted, but the Yeti company, this company right here, I got their mug, they said, no way. Now, this is dumb in my opinion, because if you're the Yeti company, why would you not partner with them and sell your Yeti cups in Utah and make it like the official cup of the Utah Yeti? That would have been a good move. But listen, as far as the second place goes, this is great. When I was in Utah this year, we were talking to some locals, my friend and I, when we went to the game, and they're like, oh, we actually really like Utah Hockey Club. And I'm like, you do? Because I don't. This isn't a soccer league. You know this. You cover soccer. They have enough hockey, club names in soccer. I'm really glad they went with the Mammoth, though. Big fan of this. I think this is the next best option to Yeti, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the logo for the Mammoth had limitless potential. They obviously hit it out of the park totally with the colorway as well. And I totally agree. They needed to make the change. I thought it was a cash grab selling merch for 1 year, knowing that they could get everyone to buy new stuff the next year.
Well, and they'll sell it as like, oh, this is like limited edition
season merchandise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so some other stuff we want to get into too. We talked a little bit about this last week on the show. Actually, you and I haven't really talked about this other than in our DMs, but I wanted to get the list of NHL coaching vacancies. Let's have a quick look here. Let's see. I think there's 8 now. No, 7 or 8. Let's see. And there's a couple that are off the board, obviously. Mike Sullivan going to the New York Rangers. I'm just trying to find like a recent one. Let me just see here. Who are the top? Okay, this is from May 2nd. So we're kind of looking here, but yeah, you know what? I guess just off the top of my head, we can go over some of the names that aren't here. Here's an article for May 1st, actually, but some of the names that are available right now. But let's go over some of the teams. So we know Anaheim for sure. Not Boston. I guess Boston could make a coaching change though. Sacco, I don't think there's any guarantee he's back. You've got Seattle. You've got Vancouver, obviously. Who are some other? Philly. So yeah, I think you and I talked about the Tocchet thing, but I think that where do we want to start here? Let's start with let's start with Rick Tocchet. I think you and I talked about this too. I think Philly's the destination for him, especially with New York being off the board. I think the only other options potentially maybe Boston, because I believe he did play there. And then I don't know, but I think Tocchet's going to Philly. What do you think of that?
I know why everyone thinks he's going there, but if I'm him and I have a proven track record, and respectfully, he took the Canucks from a really bad situation to one of their best seasons in recent memory. And it was incredible with what he did with that team. I think he won the Jack Adams, right?
He did, yeah. He won.
He won the Jack Adams. I don't think he's going to want to position himself on a team like the Flyers, which are definitively worse than the Canucks were when he took over their team. They just lack so much high-end talent at the center ice position, and they don't have a true number one D-man. When they traded Cutter Gauthier away, they got Jamie Drysdale, and he basically turned out to be like Shane Gostisbehere.
Yeah, that's right. Good comparison, great comparison. Yeah.
So it's like they really lack so much, and I know he has so much ties to the Flyers, but it's like I can't see a guy like that with his caliber of coaching ability and reputation settling going there. I think maybe LA Kings.
Okay.
I think that's a sneaky team in the aspect of they're pretty set up like before Kopitar retires. I mean, they're pretty set up well for the future as well, but I think he's probably would look at that team and say, I could probably make a real run with this team in the next 1 to 2 years with this core.
Problem is, though, they don't have a GM right now. And I wonder is he going to wait around that long for a job? Like, I get it. Trust me. My understanding is Tocchet lives in Vegas. So any sort of, like anything. But then we've also heard that he's got family back east and all this stuff. That's the first I've heard of LA. I understand where you're coming from. It's definitely a better setup. And there's obviously a lot of things that come out of Tocchet leaving the Canucks as well, because people are like, oh, well, does he know something we don't, that Quinn Hughes is leaving, or is it just too hard to, go in a Canadian market or whatever? I don't know. There's a lot of different theories coming out of it. I have my own theory, and I'll mention that in a sec. But yeah, I think the LA thing could work. I just think that the timing might not work out because they got to find a GM first, and then that GM's got to come in and decide if that's where he wants to go. Some other candidates, Pittsburgh, they don't have a coach, obviously getting rid of Mike Sullivan. Tocchet used to coach there as an assistant. He could potentially come back. You get to work with Sidney Crosby again. There's some options there. I mentioned Boston. He did play for Boston, by the way. I just looked that up. I don't know. I think, again, we've heard this is the only information we have. He has family back east. We know that Philly would like roll out the red carpet for him if he wanted to go there. I agree with you, though. It's not much of a better situation in Philly than it is in Vancouver. So there's that. But it's like that's the team he played for. There's a lot of pride. I can understand that aspect too. Other than that, like I don't think there's any other teams really, unless something happens in the second round. Like there was some talk maybe Jared Bendenar was going to be gone from Colorado. McFarland came out and said that's not happening. Same thing with John Cooper in Tampa Bay. Julian Breezewalk came out. No, he's our coach. So those could have been options too. But I think if I'm a betting man, I'm going to go Philly. But I will come on here and give you full marks if he does do something crazy and go to LA. But I don't know. I think it would have to be, he'd have to get paid. I know that's part of it too, but I also think it's got to be the right situation. And LA does fit that mold. I just wonder right now with them not having a GM, unless they get something soon, I don't know if that's going to happen. So we'll see where Rick Tocchet goes. Joel Quenneville, there's all this talk that he's coming back this year. We know all the issues that happened in Chicago and him getting fired from Florida. I'm hearing Anaheim because I guess Pat Verbeek's, I know he's the GM there. There's some tie to Quenneville and Pat Verbeek, and I'm trying to remember where it's from. I might actually have to go look up Pat Verbeek's record here, where the tie is there. But have you been hearing that? I'm hearing Quenneville in Anaheim.
Yeah, I think he's got to go to a market that's not a lot of media pressure, especially coming back from the situation in which he had been not coaching in the NHL for so long. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I feel like the teams that would profile to where he would go are similar to like maybe in Anaheim before we got Dean Evison. I would say even Columbus would have been, because the media aren't going to be on him like that. And I think exactly like you said, the Anaheim Ducks, they just profile to perfectly be a team where he's going to fly under the radar and not get bombarded by media. He's not going to Chicago. He's not going to Boston. He can't go to any of these Canadian teams. Like they're going to like make his life a living hell over there answering media questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just looking here at like any sort of ties to, like I just heard there's some relationship with Verbeek and Quenneville, and I'm looking at Quenneville's playing career. That he played in Hartford, but he didn't play at the same time Verbeek did. And then he coached obviously Quebec, Colorado, St. Louis, and all these other teams, but I'm not seeing any overlap. Anyways, it's a small community, the hockey community, so we'll see if that happens there. The other name I'm hearing a lot of traction on is Jay Woodcroft, the former coach of the Oilers. Just from what I hear, great reputation around the league. A lot of people felt like he got a raw deal in Edmonton. That's another name to keep in mind for some of these vacancies. I don't know if there's any sort of ties anywhere, but do you think Woodcroft will get picked up this year? It seems like someone that will get a job.
Yeah, especially in a market like Edmonton where the expectations are so high. It's unfair that these coaches don't really get to build anything. The Edmonton Oilers recycle coaches and they just turn them over so quickly. It's really no coincidence that they've never been able to have any consistent momentum in the playoffs year after year. Yeah, they do make deep runs, but as a soccer guy myself, I'm a firm believer that you need to have a manager over a long period of time so they can establish culture and just really just identify the roles that these players need to fit into their system the best.
There we go. Finally found something. Of course, it would help if I go to NHL.com, but you can see some of the lists of the current coaches. So the Ducks, they need a coach. We mentioned him. The Kraken, Canucks, Penguins. Oh yeah, the other Penguins one I heard. Listen to this. This is a bit of a stretch, but it kind of makes sense here. Manny Malhotra. So Manny Malhotra currently coaching the Abbotsford Canucks. Are in the second round of the AHL playoffs right now. Very, very well respected around the league. So if you don't remember, he actually was an assistant with the Canucks, then became an assistant with the Leafs, then left the Leafs to go somewhere, and then now he's with Abbotsford. And there's a connection here to British Columbia as well, with the fact that obviously Malhotra played for the 2011 Canucks that went to the finals. He's a third-line center, and his son plays for the Chilliwack minor league team there as well. And I think I told you this on one of the streams that, Manny Malhotra is married to Steve Nash's sister, right? Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you did say that when I was on the show.
So there's some ties to BC as well. But anyways, the tie to Pittsburgh is Dubas was obviously GM in Toronto when he was an assistant coach. So maybe there's some thought that he could get picked up there. But that's, Jim Rutherford said himself at the year-end presser that Manny Malhotra is on a short list for the Canucks as well. Obviously, they're in the playoffs right now. But I don't know. I think the Canucks one is totally up in the air right now. I heard Jay Woodcroft as well, tied to the Canucks. Mitch Love, who's an assistant with Washington, is tied to the Canucks. He's from British Columbia as well. That was a name I heard the other day. Do you have any theories on the Canucks? Because I think it's going to end up being Malhotra. I just have that feeling. They've done this before. Remember, Travis Green was a coach the Utica Comets, which was the old Canucks minor league team, and they just promoted him. I could see the same thing here happening with Manny, and then that way there's familiarity with the organization. What do you think is going to happen in Vancouver?
Here's why I think that hiring from within is the right move for the Vancouver Canucks. You don't want to be shelling out tons of cash on a coach to try to correct this team where the direction and future isn't entirely certain, specifically with Quinn Hughes and the way Elias Pettersson's performed in the last season. I think it would be smart to promote from within. Yeah, it doesn't always work out sometimes, but like, for example, the Columbus Blue Jackets had Jared Bednar coaching their AHL team, and now he's coaching the Colorado Avalanche and won a Stanley Cup. So sometimes you let these guys walk and you really regret it. And in the situation that the Canucks are in, like I said, it's not a rebuild they're going into, but there's going to be a retool, because if they get rid of Quinn Hughes, they're going to get whatever they want if it comes to it. You know,
well, the Hughes thing's complicated though. Here's the problem though with that is that, like, I agree. Like, I think that, yeah, if you were to trade Quinn Hughes right now, you'd get like the most return because, you know, he's playing amazing, and we're not close to that, you know, impending UFA thing. But the thing that sucks is, like, we know he wants to go to New Jersey. New Jersey knows he wants to go to New Jersey. If you're New Jersey, why would you trade anything to get him when he could just walk in a couple of years? Like, I wonder, like, I hate to say it, but the Canucks are kind of handcuffed here with this whole Hughes thing, right? Because, like, it really. So there's a school of thought that, like, listen, the Canucks have to be competitive. They can't do a rebuild right now to keep Hughes happy and get him to stay. But then there's also a thought where it's like, well, it looks like he's going to leave anyways. His favorite coach is gone. Do you just do the rebuild now? Like, I don't know. This is maybe one of the most important off seasons in Canucks history. They don't have a coach. They don't have a second line center. Elias Pettersson, there's question marks there. Demko's in a contract year. Like, what's gonna, you know, what's happening here? Like, I think there's so many ways this could go, and I don't know where it's going to go. And then there's also this talk that they're going to trade the 15th overall pick. They might trade Tom Wielander, who they haven't signed yet. Like, it's a complete disaster here in Vancouver. I don't know how it's going to unfold. As an outsider looking in, what are some of your thoughts on all the things that Vancouver has to deal with?
Listen, I don't want to come on your show and make you upset.
No, go for it. Listen, you can't upset me more than I already have been. I mean, I see it every day in the news.
I think it's going to go very bad very soon. I think the only way this ends is ugly. Sadly, the declining value on Elias Pettersson. Like you said, the Canucks are losing leverage now that everyone knows that your GM literally had a press conference and says it's inevitable that Quinn Hughes wants to play with his brothers. You can't say that publicly and have 31 other GMs messaging each other. Can you believe this idiot just said this in public?
Yeah, I know.
We're going to be able to hold him out till the last second. And then what's going to probably happen is he's going to be running up on free agency. You're going to be forced to trade him as a rental to a contender and get a ridiculously underwhelming value for him. And that's really the only way I see it going.
So I have a different view on this, and I'm in the minority, by the way, because pretty much what you're describing is what every one of my Canucks friends or people that I know like sort of feel that, yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So we found out yesterday, Elias Pettersson not going to be playing in the World Championships for Sweden because he has multiple injuries. Now, there's this theory out there that Pettersson's been injured the whole year, and that part of the reason that, you know, he had such a hard time, and you've seen it with like his skating and his bursts and stuff, is because he's still dealing with the knee issue. Now, is this a career-ending injury? I don't know, but is it something that he should have maybe sat on the sidelines for? Possibly, but I find it interesting that, you know, he's not playing in these situations like, you know, something like Sweden, and he's still injured. Like, maybe it was an injury, because it's just weird that, like, he has such you know, a high like percentage, you know, so many good seasons where he's playing so well, and then all of a sudden there's a drop off. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it's not like he's old. It's not like he had a very pinpoint injury, you know, like you've seen players where, you know, they've had like serious injuries and it's like derailed their career. But you look at the stats, we're looking at on the screen here. I mean, listen, 102 points in 2022, 2023. Even last year, like the first half, he was an NHL All-Star, 68 points the year before. It just seems weird that all of a sudden that would just stop. So we'll see. Again, I think the best move here is you don't trade Pettersson. You hope it works out. And you bite the bullet, and you got to do what you can, because if they trade him, they have no centers, and you've got Philip Cheadle, who, I mean, is he going to be the second line center? I don't know. Third line center, we'll have to see. There's just a lot of question marks here, but I think the Canucks have to figure this out. But getting back to Tocchet, so I don't have the stats in front of me. I'm trying to find it right now, but there is a theory that Rick Tocchet's style of coaching actually hinders players and makes them worse. There's some data. If you go, actually, well, we'll bring it up right now. The player that they keep bringing up is Logan Cooley. So if you look at Logan Cooley, it was Logan Cooley. It was Cooley or someone else that Tocchet coached. I'm trying to remember who it was. That's on Utah. But if you look at his stats, there was talk about him being like, actually, no, it wasn't Cooley. Who's the other guy that plays on the Utah team? I'm going to find this out right now. I forget who it was. I might have to come back to this if I can't remember. Oh no, it's Clayton Keller. That's who it was. Clayton Keller. I don't know why I got those two mixed up. Let me find this post. But there's data that shows that when Clayton Keller played for Tocchet, he was just awful. And then when they get the new coach, he's finally living up to his potential. Now, that could be obviously that some of the earlier seasons he wasn't playing so well. But if you look at it here, you look at some of the stats here, 42 points here, but then he had a couple of these seasons here when Tocchet was coaching and he wasn't playing so well. And there's a theory that the same thing's happening here with Pettersson, where like Tocchet and him don't get along. So kind of what I'm getting back to here, there could be a possibility of a coach bump here for certain players, getting Tocchet out of there. The other thing that we got to consider too, with Tocchet not being here, this is why I was kind of on the fence of him coming back or not, is that the Canucks were losing, but it was boring hockey, Troy. People weren't excited to watch the Canucks play. It was very defensive. And it worked in a lot of cases, but not enough to make the playoffs. So I think there's a thought too that people want to see more offense from the Canucks. They want to see more plays. And I think part of Rick Tocchet's coaching style is not fun to watch. So I think there's a positive in that too, where maybe certain players can thrive under a different coach. Because look at how many players went through Tocchet that they got rid of. Mikheyev, Kuzmenko, Daniel Sprong lasted 10 games before Tocchet's like, he doesn't play defense, we got to trade him. Like, there's something to that, I think. And I don't know if it's necessarily those players are bad. Look at what Kuzmenko did with LA. I think it could be the coaching thing too. So what are your thoughts on those theories that maybe Tocchet is the one that's preventing these players from playing well?
I don't think it's all of the players, but I do agree with you. The players, i.e. Clayton Keller, Elias Pettersson, and may I say soft skill profiled guys.
Yes.
You got to give some of those guys the free pass sometimes and put them with line mates that can cover for their deficiencies. Because if you're so gifted offensively, you need other guys to take the load off you. And we've seen it with Panarin, not this season, but the season before, when Vincent Trocheck was centering him. It was a match made in heaven because Vincent Trocheck is a dog, blocking shots, hitting people, and doing the work Panarin should be doing off the puck to let him completely free on offense.
This is the tweet I was trying to find. And again, I don't know why I got Logan Cooley and Clayton Keller mixed up, but either way, it says, here's why you don't want Rick Tocchet with Pittsburgh about to have influx of young players. Clayton Keller's stats. So I heard this even when Tocchet was coaching the Canucks, same sort of thing, where they're talking about certain players that don't thrive. Now, this is just one example. It would be better if they had more examples, but maybe there is something to that. We'll have to see wherever Tocchet goes, if there's certain players. Like, there's some concern too. If he goes to Philly, is that going to affect Mitchkov, right? You don't know. So we'll have to see how that all unfolds. Just quickly before we move on here, any other coaching vacancies? There's Seattle. I'm trying to think of any other ties of where like this could go. The Penguins. Do you have any idea on where like Pittsburgh or Seattle will be finding their next head coach? You heard anything there?
Those aren't attractive places to go to, sadly.
No.
So absolutely.
Well, Pittsburgh with Crosby, I would think, yes. But yeah, they're basically going through a rebuild.
But that's like until he retires. They have no good prospects in their pool. And the way that they're built out for the future. And you and I both agree on this. Kyle Dubas is horrible at his job.
Yeah, he is.
So, I mean, what person in their right mind is signing up for a contract, no matter how much they're paid, to be in lockstep with him and talk to him 20 times a day, making stupid decisions, filling out your roster?
Yeah, it's weird though, but for what we all feel this way, but then you see like he's getting like, wasn't he Team Canada's like part of Team Canada's like Four Nations? Like he's getting like, there's some respect within the industry for him.
It's because he's young. And he's also like one of the first of the analytically inclined.
That's true. Yeah. Because what was it? Sault Ste. Marie that he came from, I think, to go to Toronto. He was like considered like this boy genius. And then they brought him into Toronto and then they overpaid, all these players in Toronto. Right. So it's,
exactly. If Eric Tulsky was his age and looked like Kyle Dubas, he would be you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, no, he is but I will say this, and we talk about this all the time. The favorable media coverage that Carolina gets. I think Tulski is that guy, but I think Tulski's a lot smarter. If you look at, he's an absolute genius.
I've read his papers and stuff. He's incredibly smart.
He's a genius, but the genius that didn't know that Mikko Rantanen didn't want to sign with your team, like that to me is still like such a huge blunder that does not get enough criticism. But I guess if Carolina ends up moving in the series, it doesn't really matter, right? So we'll have to see.
I sneakily think now, like, I know this sounds crazy. Yeah. And I already said something crazy before, saying that I genuinely believe Carolina is going to win in 5.
Yeah.
I actually think they can win the Stanley Cup this year. This isn't the first time I've said this in the last 4 years. This is probably the second time I've said this in the last 4 years. I just think, like, and when I break down stuff gambling wise and prediction wise, the balance of analytics to the eye test. I probably lean 70% analytics and 30% eye test. And the Carolina Hurricanes, they're just, like I said, like if you look up any stat, like the whole team, they're just the best in all of them. And I just, something deep down inside me believes the Washington Capitals are frauds.
That's fair. I just don't know if Florida gets past Toronto. I don't know if they get past Florida. Remember what happened last year, right? Rod Brind'Amour, I'll never forget those post-game, scrums where he's just like, I don't know what's going on. Like everything worked earlier in the season and we don't have an answer for Florida. Remember, they kind of just crumbled against Florida. Now, maybe that's a thing. Like, remember the year before with Florida and Vegas, like you get over the hump the next year, but I don't know. Like, I still think Rod Brind'Amour's coaching style, I don't know if it's playoff winnable. Like, I don't know. Like, again, I don't disagree with them beating the Capitals. There's a lot of question marks with the Capitals, but I just wonder, can they get over that hump? Is this the year they can do it? And you know what I always come back to? Goaltending as well. Like, I don't know if Frederik Andersen's the answer. Maybe you don't need to be. We saw Adin Hill win a couple years ago. I don't think Adin Hill's anything special, but I don't know. And maybe it's just my bias against Carolina and how everyone thinks they're the greatest thing ever. But I don't know. I have some. If Carolina plays Florida, 100% I'm picking Florida.
Yeah, that's going to be a banger. That one's going 7 no matter what, in my opinion. And it's just like, it's easy when you get into the deep rounds to pick against Carolina because of the lack of success they've had when they get to the Eastern Conference final level. And on top of that, although they're analytical darlings, they don't play the most entertaining style, which is another reason people pick against them. And you know this, and it's in all sports. Repeating is so hard. Like we saw it happen with the Lightning. Like if you're playing an extra 20 some odd games every year, it's like, oh, wow. Like your team made 3 deep runs in the playoffs in a row. Like you actually played almost a whole season more than some of these guys, and this is another thing that I think takes a big influence on the outcome of this Carolina Hurricanes run is normally at the end of the regular season, like they're winning like 9 out of their last 10 games. They're on an absolute heater. This season, they barely had a 500 record closing out the season, and they weren't in top form. And my friend Eric Young always says the Carolina Hurricanes are all gas, no brakes. That's why they fall apart down the stretch. And this is the first year in the last 4 or 5 years where they haven't been coming down to game 82. And I'm like, oh my God, they're running away with the Metropolitan Division. They're levels. You see Svechnikov, he's perfectly coming into form right now, just thrown on the top line today. And I just feel like it's so easy to pick against them until they do it. And I think just like when Colorado won, like everyone doubted them the year they won because they failed so many times and let us down. But sometimes it just takes one magical run.
Yeah, and we saw that with St. Louis even. I mean, they were a game away from going to the second round, and nobody would have predicted that earlier in the season with the run they sort of went on. We got a couple minutes left here in the show. You did mention Tampa Bay and them playing extra. One thing we didn't talk about, Vasilevsky's numbers not so good. You got to think at some point Tampa's got to be looking in the crease. Vasilevsky's got I think a lot of game left in him. How old is he now? He's in his 30s.
But he had back surgery last year or the year before.
No, he did.
Like serious stuff. And he's a big guy.
Yeah, he's 30. So, they'll get some more seasons out of him. I just wonder, like, if you're looking at those numbers in the last couple of years, I mean, it is a bit concerning. I'm not saying that's the reason they lost, but it certainly didn't win. They didn't steal any games because of him either, I don't think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I honestly don't think he's been the same since the back surgery. Maybe he'll be back next year. But
Mm.
I've noticed like his awareness is fantastic and everything, but it's just like something seems off about him. And I just can only attribute it to that back surgery.
Let's while we're closing things out, let's have a quick look at the teams that got eliminated and kind of what could be next for them. So we'll start with St. Louis. This was like playing with house money this year for them. There wasn't a lot of expectations. They did remember Braden Shen was supposed to be traded at the deadline. That doesn't end up happening. I don't know what their free agent status is. I'll have to check that next time. But I don't imagine there'll be too many moves for St. Louis because whatever they did this year seemed to be working.
Yeah, and I think Robert Thomas is genuinely one of the most underappreciated players in the NHL. This is back-to-back seasons where he's put up point per game numbers, and he doesn't shoot a lot. So obviously he's not a prolific goal scorer, but he is a fantastic playmaker, off the charts awareness, fantastic center iceman. And I feel like if their GM can approach this the right way, they can actually come out and be really good moving forward. Because if you asked me a season or two ago the status of Colton Parayko's contract, I'd say that might be one of the worst in the NHL until this season, where I'm saying this guy's a legit shutdown, even strength first pair D-man. Obviously, he's not a power play quarterback, but you know what I'm saying? Now I look at his contract completely differently, where I'm like, oh, this guy's an absolute horse.
Yep. Colorado's interesting. So, again, we're in the similar pattern where they can't seem to move over the hump. And again, you're playing one of the toughest teams in the league in Dallas. The only thing, because I was kind of listening to some Colorado guys on the radio, and I guess I kind of noted this as well, but Brock Nelson didn't really work out for them, right? Like, I don't know if he's going to be back with them. So there's another potential free agent that could be scooped up in the offseason. But I don't know, like, in your opinion, is there anything Colorado can do here? Because their team's pretty much set. Like, I don't know where they can sort of make any improvements. I guess they've still been missing. They basically haven't been the same in that 2C position since Kadri left, right?
Yeah, and the way that the salary cap's gone, they're probably kicking themselves because Kadri's, I don't even think he's making $8 million a year. I think he's making like 7 and change. So it's like they're probably kicking themselves right now. And I think, and especially Columbus Blue Jackets, we know Don Waddell's obsessed with center iceman. He doesn't care if you play wing half the time and you only play center ice when someone gets kicked out of the circle. But two players that they've been linked to through rumors. Obviously, they're not legitimate until something happens, and we have.
That's why we're here. Yeah.
They're linked to Sam Bennett. They paid Lundell the year before, and you don't pay your third line center $6 and change mil a year.
That's true.
You don't do that. And they probably were thinking, Sam Bennett's an absolute menace. He's going to hit the open market, get the bag, and we're not going to be able to throw up that cash because he's a center iceman and a former top 3 overall pick. And everyone knows he plays playoff style hockey. And he pops 20, 30 goals almost every season, averages almost 3 shots on goal every season the past few years. The guy's a menace. And Brock Nelson's another guy that's been linked to the Columbus Blue Jackets, even at the trade deadline. But the package that the Islanders were demanding in return was so big that Columbus didn't want to comply. So if it heads into free agency and we're only paying this guy like 6-ish mil a year, 7 mil, I'll take Brock Nelson. And I'd pay Sam Bennett whatever he wants.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, maybe Bennett takes a discount to stay. We'll see. I mean, that is a pretty tight-knit group there. Just quickly, we'll kind of lump them together. Minnesota and LA. Minnesota's going to have a lot of cap space this summer. I can't remember if you and I talked about this, but I'm hearing Brock Besser's not going to Minnesota. From some of the people that I was listening to, they basically don't think he would fit in their system very well, even though he's from there, unless he takes like a massive discount. But I think Brock wants term, and I don't know if Minnesota's willing to do that with some of the names they have. But they will be hunting in the offseason. And LA's got to make some changes too. Just your thoughts on both these teams. One of them doesn't have a general manager, as we mentioned.
Yeah, LA, they're basically in the spot where, I mean, I say this every year. I feel like they're so talented. They have such a good group of players. This is going to be this group of players' last coach before it gets blown up. So if they don't get their shit together with this last coach and put a real run together in the next year or two in the playoffs, Adrian Kempe is gone. Mark my words, Kevin Fiala is gone. These guys are gone in 2 years if they don't get it together under the next coach they hire. Because the age range of these players, It was only a few years ago the LA Kings had one of the best prospect pools in the entire NHL, although they traded away Brock Faber and some other guys. But
Velarde too. Remember that trade with Dubois didn't work out for them either.
exactly. So it's like they're shitting away assets slowly. They're wasting these really good years, and they're gonna go and pay these guys in free agency in a couple years when they know that they don't have a really good direction. Absolutely not. They're going to have to cash in on these guys if they don't get it together in a year or two.
Yeah. And then Minnesota, will have to see what they do. Again, they got some cap space. They'll be making some moves, but again, pretty successful season. I mean, I don't know if many people were picking them to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I agree.
So lots there. And then just quickly talked about Tampa Bay. Ottawa, I don't think is going to do too much, although they do have some RFAs they got to figure out. But yeah, again, sort of same thing. I put Ottawa and Montreal in kind of the same category, playing with house money this year. Ottawa was, I think we both picked them to make the playoffs this year, but they're going in the right direction. And again, they were an overtime game away from making the Leafs, absolutely shit their pants in that one. So gotta like what Ottawa did. And then just quickly, New Jersey, something that they were talking about on the radio, this Jack Hughes thing, man, like he's only played. Someone said it. I was listening. I think it was Frank Saravelli was talking about this. He's only played, I think, 80. He's missed 82 games so far in his career. That's almost missing like an entire full season. That's got to be a bit of a concern for the Devils, just with his injury history, going under another surgery. I know, again, all likelihood Quinn Hughes is going there in a few years, but your number one center can't stay healthy. That's got to be a bit of a concern. And you've got to imagine New Jersey's going to try and make some moves too at the deadline. Just quickly before we get out of here, thoughts on New Jersey?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think calling him a center at this point would honestly be a complete joke because he's so bad at faceoffs. And most of the time he's slated to be on the wing. Yeah, he's a super talented player. But in general, I feel like shoulder injuries in hockey, they're recurring. We see what's happening to Josh Norris. And Jack Hughes is a really undersized player. They say he's 5'10". He's probably 5'10" with skates on. He's so talented. I draft him every year in fantasy hockey when he's healthy. He puts up fantastic numbers, but the honest to God truth is he's very frail. His bones are brittle, and I wouldn't be shocked if he misses multiple years to come in the next few years and wastes his prime.
And you never miss any of these shows, Troy. Really appreciate it, man. Anything you got coming up with Sleeper Man City and all the other stuff you do, let our audience know. Always good insight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. You could check out my work at Sleeper Man City on TikTok. I put out some UEFA Champions League predictions for the semifinal game today. It's Arsenal versus PSG, so I'm looking forward to seeing that one at 3:00.
And you can follow him at NHL_SOG_guy, right, on Twitter.
Yes.
There we go. All right. This has been another edition. We'll see you next week. We'll have a lot to talk about next time as the second round is already getting underway. I'm James Lynch. We'll see you soon.